Hello, I'm Alfred Lambrot Weber, and today is Sunday, May 12th, 2019, Mother's Day. And this is a newsinsideout.com report that was originally to have been given on Press TV International News. Press TV had invited us to report today on the police shooting in Hugo, Oklahoma, of 3, perhaps 4 African-American young children in the back of a pickup truck in Hugo, Oklahoma. Texas and Oklahoma are the among the highest shooting incidents of police shooting of African Americans in the United States. 15% of the police shootings of unarmed individuals are white, and 31.9% of police shootings of unarmed individuals are Black or African Americans, even though African Americans, Blacks, represent only 13% of the American population. And as this report will show, all of this reaches back into the continued police enforcement of the U.S. Civil War and of slavery statutes that are in place to continue the enforcement of functional slavery conditions on the African American population. And we will show that by legal precedent under the international law, under the Rome Statute, the United States police departments at the state and local levels, through United States policing authorities, and through the State of Israel, which has policing training contracts with the United States police authorities, United States and Israel, and perhaps other nations are violating Article 5 of the Rome Statute and its universal jurisdiction, which has been signed by and ratified by 118 countries. Article 6, says, for the purpose of this statute, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, such as A, killing members of the group, B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, D, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, E, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Those are the standards for genocide under the international humanitarian law, and it appears that the United States of America, the United States of America Corporation, as established in the District of Columbia under the Act of 1871, and the constituent state and local authorities as trained under national, state, and local police protocols, including trainers from the State of Israel, which has been adjudged by a competent international legal tribunal to be a war crime state for genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity practiced against the people of Palestine from 1948 forward, using some of the technologies, same technologies and techniques that they have trained the American police to be used against the African American population and perhaps other minorities. Indeed, the Hispanic and Latino population, the percentage of unarmed people killed by the Hispanic and Latino population are 25% of the total, as opposed to 15% of the white population. And so with that background, all of the links to the various judgments and the various statutes are here. People will say that, oh, but the United States does not belong to the International Criminal Court because they pulled out and they didn't ratify the treaty. Aha! There's an old saying in the law. I have to remind you that I've taught law at 2 universities, Yale University, Economics Department, and the University of Texas Government Department, as well as being an international law with a preeminent international law firm, and a judge on 2 international tribunals, the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal, which found the UK and the US guilty of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide for their unlawful invasion and prosecution of the wars in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and in Guantanamo, Cuba, where I grew up. Also as judge in the Tribunal of Conscience, along with Judge Constance Fogel, the 9/11 War Crimes Tribunal held in Vancouver, British Columbia, not to be confused with the phony 9/11 War Crimes Tribunal to perpetuate the cover-up. Okay, so basically what we would like to show is, number one, share with you certain patterns that were apparent in this shooting. First of all, no details have been made public so far in the press articles that we've covered, and we're going to be sharing them. But it's clear, number one, that the 2 police officers in this incident were both plain clothed detectives. They had no overt sign of their police authority. And so the African American adult who was driving, adult male, and 95% of the African Americans who represent 37.2% of US prison populations, even though they only represent 13.2% of the population, the 37.2% in prison. He would not know that these were 2 policemen who were chasing him. And so he had 4 children in the back of the truck, young children. And so he could have thought that in Oklahoma, these were 2 redneck, racist Oklahomans who had been incited Who knows by whom? But there have been certainly incidents, even and included by the current Israeli supporter and obedient partner of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Donald J. Trump, inciting white supremacists. So it could have, and in the heat of the moment, they aren't releasing any things. You have two white rednecks chasing an African American in a pickup truck with 4 young children in the back. That's the facts. And who ends up getting shot? 3 and perhaps 4 of the young children with bullets in their skulls. Now, the 2 detectives have been placed on administrative leave, no charges, and on the face of it, on prima facie evidence, this is a war crime. Just on the statistical basis alone, because this is a population, just from the statistics alone, that violate the international legal standards with regard to genocide and targeting a particular segment of the population. There's an international study showing it. All of this will be in the article, so you can study it for yourself. Unarmed people killed by police, more than twice as many black than white. And the statistics go along. And then if you go into the historical record of what the functions of police have been in the United States prior to the Civil War, when slavery of African Americans was the basis of the economy in more than half of the country. Slave labor was the basis of the economy in more than half the country. Number one, during those years, the police as an institution were used as tools to protect the institution of slavery. And the white settler slave-owning population used hired white police to enforce pro-slavery anti-black laws, such as the slave fugitive laws, so that the police as an institution nationwide were the institution that enforced slavery. American slavery, not to mention apartheid, was enforced by the police in pre-Civil War enslaving America. Okay? Second, and we will post this article, the police then were used to enforce Black Code, this is after the Civil War, Black Code, vagrancy, and Jim Crow laws. Now, I've been to South Africa, I've been to Johannesburg, and you can see how apartheid is functionally still in place there. And after slavery technically ended, American apartheid was put in place through Black Code, vagrancy, and Jim Crow laws, a continuation of apartheid and functional slavery of the African American population. that was put into place and enforced again nationwide by the police against 13% of the population, American slaves, and that ties African Americans, and that ties into Article 6, genocide, of the International Criminal Court statute. And remember, the United States, along with China, Russia, the United States, and Iran have pulled their country out of the ICC, saying, oh, can't catch me, I don't belong. But that's not how the law operates, and that's not how the treaty was designed, because you don't break the law, you break yourselves against the law. And there are 118 nations who have signed and ratified the International Criminal Court statute, which gives universal jurisdiction to the national courts of those 118 nations, meaning that if there are violations of international law, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide anywhere on the planet, any one of those countries, the courts of any one of those 118 countries are competent to hear those cases in their national courts, either under their own statute or under their own criminal statutes against war crimes. Why? Because they have international jurisdiction, universal jurisdiction. And the design of this treaty was to decentralize the prosecution of war crimes and make this a war crimes-free planet. And part of the history of this, I mean, even Princess Diana got involved of the UK and gave her life in order to bring these principles into being. Because it was clear, at least by my analysis, that Princess Diana, in my judgment, was executed in a black ops operation, not because of family jealousies and the Windsors and, you know, the department store heir, but because she got behind and got the Ottawa Treaty Conference against landmines started and went into the war industry, which is the City of London, Rothschild, Vatican, District of Columbia war machine, profiteering, reptilian brain, along with the drug industry, fundamental profiteering, civilization of death industry on this planet. But they shall, there's an Isaiah that says, they shall beat their swords into plowshares. But let's get to it. Okay, so let's go down here. 3, the police are still used to enforce racist anti-Black laws. So we still have functional apartheid and functional enforcement of slavery in the United States, and the police are still enforcing slavery because you have 37.2% of the US prison population is African American, and they're only 13.2%. And the percentage of unarmed civilians who are killed by police, 31.9% of them are Black, and only 15% of them are white. That is technically, legally, the definition of genocide. And how do we know that? I mean, what difference does it make? Or where are you coming from? Okay, well, what is included in the links here is a legal precedent of the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Commission against the State of Israel, where the State of Israel was found guilty of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide against Palestine, the real nation that is there, Palestine. There was never a State of Israel. You can't prove it historically. There was never a King David. Never. It's all propaganda, religious propaganda. The Palestinian people have been there. The Israeli people are really all Khazars, false Jews who converted to Judaism, smart merchants on the Silk Road, and now they're doing their Yiddish best to steal and rob, and large amounts of cash from the Rothschilds into Harry S. Truman's campaign in 1948 are what made the unlawful recognition of Israel in 1948 occur. It's corruption, that's all. And then unlawful, genocidal, and crimes against humanity by the occupation of a war crimes state, illegitimate state, that engaged in the war crimes of assassination of a beloved leader, John F. Kennedy, on November 22nd, 1963, and I was consulted to Representative Henry V. Gonzalez of Texas, the chairman of the House Banking Committee, in the passage of the House Select Committee on Assassinations in November, December of 1976, in conjunction with the election of U.S. President Jimmy Carter, with the help of the widow of Dr. Martin Luther King and the Congressional Black Caucus to investigate the political assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X. And the war crimes state of Israel also, by the best evidence, was the perpetrator behind the false flag operation of September 11, 2001, in order to perpetrate a regime of warfare called the War on Terror to implement the Greater Israel Project in the Middle East and keep its captive client state, which it had captured as a result of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963, and the capturing of that by the State of Israel as a war crime rose state. And the police, going back historically, were now co-opted. And we'll put all of the literature in how the present president of the United States, as all of the Project Pegasus presidents, were time travel, quantum access, pre-identified, at least in 1971, so that the CIA and what we call the chronography, the secret time travel government, knew, at least in 1971, and groomed these presidents for that office, including Donald J. Trump. Marjorie Merriweather Post, the heiress to the Post fortune, gave Mar-a-Lago. I used to live in West Palm Beach, and we spent all our time over in Palm Beach. She gave Mar-a-Lago, worth $150 million, to the nation, to the Department of Interior as a second White House. Okay? And what the CIA time travel pre-identification unit did is that they took it and they slipped it through a crooked deal to the current POTUS for $6 million, to Trump for $6 million on a sweetheart backroom deal so that they could build up his image as Daddy Warbucks and, you know, he become Israel baby and he could outlaw 5G on the grounds of Mar-a-Lago, which the CIA had slipped in for $5 million, which is less than the value of the house that I'm in Vancouver, Canada, which I share with many, many other people. That's how we live now. We have to, you know, pool all of our assets, our monthly rents. It's Israel performing genocide. Performing genocide under the International Criminal Court statute of the African American population in the United States through systematic police protocols and training. And so anyone in the African community that has had a relative killed, for example, the mother or shot that has 3 of her children, critical now, you can gather together and go to one of the 118 nations. We'll have all of that with links in the article here. And gather yourselves together, go to the NAACP, go to, you know, uncorrupted lawyers, and start an action in the courts of an action against defendants in the United States for war crimes. Why do you think Trump and his phony lawyers are trying, you know, will deny visas for the International Criminal Court to come and gather evidence? The original design of the ICC statute was not to have everything tried at a big court in The Hague, you know, no, it was to decentralize the trying of war crimes throughout the world. And we have 118 nations with those courts. People don't understand that you don't break the law, you break yourselves against the law. So I am, News Inside Out is publishing this article and this newsinsideout.com international law news update with a view toward providing the Hugo, Oklahoma, and the entire African American community at large the legal tools to seek out legal fora among the 118 countries that have signed and ratified the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court and begin to bring actions for war crimes, genocide, crimes against humanity, violations against national government, state government, local government, national police authorities, state police authorities, local police authorities, state of Israel that's involved in training these, elected political officials, appointed police officials. Donald J. Trump, I think he's a stooge, and we'll include all of the articles here that show that he's America's first Zionist president. All this stuff about Russia, that's just a cover story. You know, many people have documented the fact that even Putin himself seems to be an agent of Israel or play for them. Thank you very much for your patience. Those who have eyes to see, ears to hear, and ability to really get in there. This is a tremendous way. This is called slavery reparations. Okay? It's through the law. Applied slavery reparations, because it's the police shootings by which they are denying slavery reparations and continue to enforce the slavery laws. This is Alfred Lemont Weber with a international law update from newsinsideout.com on Mother's Day, May 12th, 2019, from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Thank you very much.